everybody. This is Amy Lane, the Literate Yogi, and I have another interview for you guys. And my guest today is Catherine Ewing. And I know Catherine through the Women's Consortium where I work. She's done some workshops with us. I've only seen you, Catherine, do workshops on emotional freedom technique, but we're going to talk a little bit about something different. But I thought that I would give you a little bit of an opportunity to just tell the group a little bit about yourself and, based on what we're going to be talking about. So it's not necessarily like you're giving like your resume, but just your kind of your awakening.
Yeah. So I think, this can get long-winded, but I'm going to try to sort of bring it in for the purpose of this conversation. And I guess what I really want to say is and it sounds a little corny, but literally from the time that I was little, I felt a calling to do or be more, right? So, and I'll just give you an example. So I used to, as a little girl, have visions of, I grew up Irish Catholic and I went through Catholic school. And I used to have visions of me standing on the altar level, protecting the host, like the alcove in the wall where the host was
right. Yeah.
And
is it the tabernacle? Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't.
Yeah.
Sacristy, whatever. I don't remember exactly the name of that particular space, but I used to have these visions. Now I know what they were, of me like fending off marauders, like somehow the church was being overrun and I was protecting the host. What did I know? I thought all 7-year-old girls had those.
Right.
So I innocently announced my first year in Catholic school was in 2nd grade. And I innocently announced that I was going to be a priest when I grew up. And of course, immediately got the smack down, not literally smack, but the verbal smack down, like, no, you can't do that. Only men, boys, whatever. And I was like, wait a minute, I have 6 brothers and I think as capable as any of them. Anyway, but my point is that I feel like I've always had sort of a calling. So, even as a teenager, volunteering on political campaigns that had a more progressive lean, marching for years for the ERA, being one of the first women in the college, now called the university, that I went to take the women's courses, course of study when it was women's history, when it was first offered. Following that with also when I got my MSW, having a women's studies area of expertise in both of those cases, being the head of the women's caucus on campus. So there's always been an energy of mobilizing around women, supporting women, and then of course working for many, many years in areas of direct service like sexual assault and rape crisis work, and union organizing for low income women, low wage women who are being paid low wages. So I've always, again, had that sort of activist geared in the direction of women and empowerment and supporting women through challenging situations, regardless of age or whatever. And it has just continued with me. It's just been, no matter what I've done, there has always been that element of, it's generally focused around women, working with women's trauma or challenges, and teaching and sharing what I've known, as a force for sort of transformation. Mm-hmm. And so the back end of my story of being told I couldn't be a priest when I was 7 was that, yesterday was the 15th anniversary of my ordination as
Wow.
a spiritual peacemaker. So I didn't end up being a priest, but there was this passion, this purpose around ministry, not in a traditional priest or minister role, but that I have work to do on the world that has been evident through all the different phases and stages of my life.
Right.
And as I said, 15 years ago, yesterday, stood on the shore of the Sea of Galilee with a group of spiritual peacemakers and was ordained. And so there's always been this sense of mission and purpose. And when I started to lean in the direction of coaching, the coaching programs that I was drawn to were all connected to purpose. The first one was, I became a certified dream coach, dream as in more like goals, not nighttime dreams.
Right.
And then I was certified as a facilitator of the passion test, which is, again, identifying your passions and your purpose. And it, has sort of just continued to grow from there, where it's really this blending of, again, that sort of healing, transformational energy, and my passion for all things spiritual and metaphysical, and how to bring those all together. It's sort of this intersection, of therapy, science, brain science, spirituality, metaphysics, purpose, and now really looking at how the trauma and the challenges that, in my lingo, your soul has chosen to experience in this lifetime for its expansion is directly related to your purpose. You don't often hear, well, a little bit more now, but you don't often hear trauma and purpose sort of talked about in the same breath. Not in the sense that they inform each other, right? The things that we've overcome, when we can heal the emotional and psychological aspects of it, the wisdom that we then take with it, the wisdom and the learning that we take with us, literally, for me, sets the groundwork for our purpose. Like, it's connected to what we have grown through. And in the same way, having a purpose or a sense of purpose helps pull us forward when our trauma or challenges could be holding us back. Years ago, Reverend Michael Beckwith from Agape Spiritual Center, in Los Angeles, I heard him say, we're pulled by our pain until we're pushed by our purpose.
Yes.
And so I see them not only as two sides of the same coin, but literally intricately involved with each other, inseparable almost, in the way that they inform each other.
So you kept talking about the word purpose, and I had said to you before we had started that I feel like, and I there's a number of reasons why I feel this way. I feel like as a spiritual planet or plane that we're on, that we're moving someplace else. And I feel that a lot of people are, all of a sudden the blinders are off. And they are now like, oh my gosh, I see things for what they are. And now I need to help. I need to have a purpose, especially somebody like my age. I'm in my 50s now. And I feel like I don't know if I honored my purpose. I'm searching for my purpose right now. And I think there are a lot of us out there. So, can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, I want to, when you talked about the age, thank you for bringing that up, because, one of the parts of my story is this, what I call sort of the error of divine discontent. And
Yeah.
it took place between my mid 40s and my early 50s. And you may know the story. You know, I got pulled into psychotherapy per se, kicking and screaming. It was not anything that I imagined I would want to do. I had a pretty narrow view of it. I didn't think very highly of it necessarily. I thought it was for people who wanted to indulge themselves, you know, whatever. But when I was like 40, how old was I? Well, it was my late 30s actually when I went back to, when I was called to go into psychotherapy, and I was like, no, but I did because it was just a strong calling. And when I got there, it took a few years for me to realize, I don't feel like this is really where I'm supposed to be, because it feels frustrating. I feel like I'm not making a difference for my clients. I'm feeling like I'm almost re-victimizing them by just talking about the same stuff. And I was feeling this anxiety, and and I'm not typically an anxious person, but it felt like this clutching, this tightening in my chest. So I did a lot of deep breathing in those years. And I think I just sort of threw up my hands and said, help. I can't keep doing this if I don't feel like I'm really, making a difference, or feeling fulfilled myself. And what happened was I got sort of, turned a little bit onto a more spiritual path, because I was trying to find other ways to work with my clients that would be more effective, for lack of a better word, but also more compassionate, more efficient, if you will. And since I was not drawn to the clinical model per se, I hadn't studied that, I didn't want to study that. I didn't like the idea of people being identified by their weaknesses or being, and so what I found was that I was drawn to a more spiritual path, and that meant I had to start doing the work. So doing more yoga, doing meditation, starting journaling, and all of a sudden I just opened up to like everything under the sun that was spiritual or metaphysical, and I just became totally immersed. I like to say I had more uploads, downloads, activations, deactivations, progressions, regressions. You name it, I've done it probably 5 times or more. And it really was both a path that I followed to try to find ways to help my clients, but I also think it was the universe's way of getting me on my own path in a more, solid way. And, that's when I went through, got certified in 7 or 8 different kinds of energy, practicing modalities. I went through seminary for 2 years, and I really went through this period of real transformation. On the other side, my life turned upside down and inside out. I ended up leaving the practice that I was in. I opened a healing center. I left my 30-year marriage. I lived in somebody's basement for 15 months until I could.
So when we're in that type of an awakening,
I'm sorry, I missed the beginning of
that can happen when you're in that type of awakening.
It can, and I kind of kiddingly say, look, I jumped off the ledge, and I don't recommend that to everybody. But that's just kind of, how it rolled out for me. Things just started happening, in very rapid succession. So, we talk about purpose. I also like to talk about sort of this, midlife transformation or metamorphosis or whatever you want to call it. I really do believe there is a time in that late, mid to late 40s, early 50s, where we start to question this more. And, years and years ago, I don't know if you remember, I'm just old and, older than you, that you may not have read this book, but called Passages by Gail Sheehy.
No.
And she looks at women's development in 7-year cycles. So 0 to 7, 8 to 14 or whatever. And, the cycles when you get 42 to 49 and then 49 to 56, whatever it is, it's really about beginning to turn inward more. Historically for women, maybe not so much now because, maybe we're getting married a little older or waiting to have children a little bit longer. But, historically for women, those were the years where the kids are leaving, sort of the empty nest. And the focus comes back to who am I?
Yeah.
And what do I want? Have I made the choices that have
how
truly
do I serve?
Well, how do I serve? Yeah, and whose idea of my life am I living?
Yes.
Because very often we're just going with, what's kind of been laid out as the socially acceptable. Again, I think these norms are changing some. But I think for the most part, many women still take on the, dating, marriage, mother, raise kids, work, do most of the stuff at home. Like we still, we birth the children. So there's always going to be that component if we choose to have children. So I think both developmentally and chronologically, we come to this point where we really start questioning, who am I? What do I really want? Or what now? And I don't believe that we only have one purpose.
Well, I'm going to interrupt you because I heard you said something on one of your live videos that just really hammered it for me. You said that, we can't all be, Oprah Winfrey's and Martin Luther King and,
Mother Teresa and Malala or, Greta Thunberg or whatever, right?
We can all be those. And I think that sometimes we get caught up in that and think that if we're not doing that, then we're not doing it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So there's a number of different ways that I talk about this. And one is being versus doing, right?
Right.
Sort of being on purpose, which is being intentional and being conscious and choosing to raise your own vibration and to carry certain energies in the world so that no matter what you're doing, you're bringing forward compassion or forgiveness or love or acceptance or inclusion or, a higher vibrating energy. And you just sort of be that. You just sort of are that, right? And then there's more the doing your purpose, which is, like I did. I turned my life upside down and inside out. And, my work is my purpose. So it doesn't always have to be about the doing, or it could be about the doing, but the doing could be in daily acts of kindness, right? Again, it doesn't have to be about a movement or being on stage or writing a book or, people who perform simple acts of kindness are being on purpose and touching many, 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 many lives. People who are artistic and creative, even if they're not, putting their work out to the world or whatever, even if they're just doing it for the joy of it, that creative expression and that joy is being on purpose.
So I love that because I have always tried to take a passion that I enjoy and turn it into a hustle. And right?
Yeah, welcome to the club.
Right. And this probably passed, I don't know, maybe a couple months. I finally said, Amy, stop doing that and just enjoy it. So this is really what the Literate Yogi is about. Like, I'm not interested in bringing people into my community to sell them anything, or I just want to just have this nice community for people and just enjoy it. And I can do that. I live in a life where I'm fortunate enough where I don't have to do the hustle anymore. So stop doing that, you know,
Yeah.
and relax and really enjoy this. And
Yeah.
so that's where I'm
And
at.
there's such a sense of expansion and freedom in that too, because then you just do it for the love of it, do it for the joy of it, and you bring yourself to it with that energy.
Right. And I don't have to be an Oprah Winfrey.
No, I mean, there's so many, we're all wired so differently. I mean, from astrological signs to your human design, to your gene keys, to, your emotional code.
Right.
We all are wired differently. We're all influenced differently by cosmic energy. We're not all here to do the same thing. There's that beautiful, it's actually a yogic story, I think, called Indra's Net, where in the yogic tradition, it's sort of like there's this beautiful net around the earth, I mean, obviously the sky and the stars, and at every intersection, there's a light, a star, a bright light in the net, and it's each individual is like one of those stars. And the more you're living in your purpose or on your purpose, the brighter your light shines, and holds up that net. And when it's dim or when it's out, there's sort of like something missing in that part of the sky where your light is perhaps not shining.
Right.
There was something else that you prompted me. There are a couple, so I don't remember the exact quotes now. One was Carl Jung about the most important thing we can do is find that one thing and then do it to the best of our ability. But, other people believe that really everybody's highest purpose is to just be the best them that they can be.
Right.
Because ultimately, why else are we here?
Right. So what would you say to us folks out there that are struggling finding their purpose? What do we do?
I would go back to what you said. Really just, what do I love? What did I used to love? What did I used to do as a kid that I would spend hours, or what is it that I do that time can just go by and I can get lost in something, whether that's gardening or reading or teaching a child something, or but this idea of sort of letting it go. Like, I think sometimes we get so uptight about that question. Oh, I got to find my purpose. I got to find my purpose. I got to find my purpose. Like, there's this one thing out there that if I just find that and do it, it'll just change everything.
Or what if I get it wrong?
Right, right. Or I don't know, I don't feel anything. What's the matter with me? Like, then we make ourselves wrong or bad or less than. So I love what you said about find something you like doing and just enjoy doing it. I don't know if you've seen my lives this week's, because they're a little bit different. I was doing that whole 5-day challenge and all of that stuff before. But this week I've been talking more about the Mother Mary deck, the Oracle cards. I don't know if you've heard any.
No, but I love Oracle cards and Tarot cards. So tell me.
Yeah, so there's this beautiful deck. They're in the other room. I could grab them if you want to see the cover, but it's the Mother Mary Oracle card deck by Alana Fairchild and Shiloh McLeod. She has three names. Shiloh McLeod, forgetting her, who is the artist. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. But earlier in the month, actually, yeah, around the same time that I was doing my 5-day challenge, a woman whose book has influenced me a lot, the Sophia Code, Kyra, who channeled that book, was also doing a 7-day walk with Mother Mary. So when I got finished with what I was doing, I would go and, tap into what she was doing for 7 days there. And I was guided to start pulling a card each day from the Mother Mary deck. Well, I can't even tell you. So the first few days were all around the election, and I pulled 2 cards that I had never pulled from the deck before that were about peaceful change and being peace, right? Literally pulled them on alternating days. And then, so they set the stage, but every card that I've pulled since then has had to do with surrendering, dropping into your heart, doing what brings you joy, and trust. Now, and I can't tell you how many times in the last 11 days I have read the words Sacred Heart. Now, the name of my business is Sacred Heart Alchemy. So I feel like I've kind of been being hit over the head with these messages about surrender, trust, right? Let go of the grip, trust what's coming, trust the change. Absolutely. It has been like everywhere.
So you said that. That's so funny because the Sunday before election, I pulled cards on the group, and it was all about, you know what, just surrender. Just let things happen. Like, you've done your work, okay? Now it's just time to just sit back and let the universe do its thing. So that's so amazing that you got very similar.
And I think that's one of the hardest things to do, Amy. We all look at the law of attraction. It's like, ask, believe, receive, intention, attention, no tension. We think the end is the easiest part. It's not. As Abraham says, we're always asking, just like seeing contrast. I like that, I don't like that. I want that, I don't want that, right? We're always asking.
Right.
It's always being put into our vortex, so to speak. But when we're tightened up and clenched up and grasping that chasing energy, we're not the right vibrational match for things to come to us.
Absolutely.
Right? So that allowing part actually is probably the most difficult part of those 3 steps. The asking, the believing, and then just being able to receive. Right. And in fact, one of the things Mother Mary said, this was the lady with her feet on the moon, I think was the card. And it was the one that was really about surrender. And she said, no, really surrender. Like, I'm not talking about say, okay, I surrender, and then 5 minutes later asking the same question again.
Right. Yeah.
Right? It's like you can't go plant the seed and then pull it up to see if the roots are growing, right? Not going to work that way. So it was, and so I'm in a coaching group, and the day before, my coach had said to me, I think you're doing great, with all this, but there's a piece that I feel like you still need to surrender. And she said, like, really surrender. And then she told a story about how when her brother died unexpectedly in his early 40s, and her own grief process, and how she finally had to just go into surrender around it. And she said, it's not just saying I surrender or I give up or I give it to you or whatever. It really has to be to the core of your being.
Right. And feeling all that comes with it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm naturally kind of a type A. So to really hand it over and say, okay, it's yours.
Right. Yeah.
I'm giving it to you. That is not an easy thing for me to do. I am such a fixer and I want to go in there and tweak it. And are you sure?
Right. Right. I'll have to look that deck up. That sounds really interesting. Okay.
It's like literally 10 steps away. I can grab it and bring it back. Or you
Go get it.
go get it?
Yeah. I want to see it. She's so great. I love this. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. And so I'll share this with you.
Some cards. Can I just see, like, just pull a couple of cards? I can see.
This is Our Lady of Blessing Bestowed. This is one of the ones I've been pulling recently. I pulled that 2 days in a row. Our Lady of Sacred Sisterhood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean they're all so. Oh, here's.
Get that.
This is Our Lady with the moon at her feet.
Wow.
And the day that my coach said that to me, so I pulled a card that evening and I, read it, tears, recognition, all of that. And as I went to put the book back in the box, I read what was on the back. Oh, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze, or I'm not. All right.
Bless you.
Thank you. And I won't read you the whole thing, but this part that it said, I come to you in light and darkness, through joy, and even, my beloved, through loss and tragedy. I am always your loving mother. I am seeking you. That blew my heart open in a way I can't even describe. Because part of that energy that my coach identified was this sense of always chasing, always grasping. And if you know my story, I don't know if you remember, but my mother passed away when I was 22. Mm-hmm. My dad passed away when I was 30. So, I've never, as an adult, had anybody who's, totally had my back in that way that loving parents do. Totally. And even growing up, I'm the seventh of 8 children. So there's a lot going on in my household. And my grandmother and aunt also moved in with us at a certain period of time when we moved from New York to New Jersey, because the company that my dad and my aunt worked for moved its headquarters. So you either went or you didn't have a job, right? And so my parents were very loving people, and they worked hard, to make a family for that many people, but there wasn't a lot of one-on-one time with either one of them. I can maybe think of 4 times in my whole life where I did something special with my mom, Yeah. So even to ask for something, or to need something, or to express an emotion that may not have been fully accepted, there was always this sense of, and I didn't even find the words to this, and I'll tell you the rest of the story, of being a nuisance, a little bit of a nuisance.
I totally get it. I was the last of 6.
Okay.
And my mother passed away when I was 9. So
yeah. In the conversation with my coach, she said, oh, you should read this book. I forget the name of it right now. It was one of Jack Canfield's very early books, I think. And so I got it on my Kindle that night because I wanted to read it. The second sentence about, I always felt like a nuisance. And that word, like I hadn't, you hear I didn't feel deserving, or I didn't feel worthy, or I felt, literally, again,
what you said.
It landed in such a way, it was exactly the language I had used. So she says, the Aladdin and the something or other. to open the book and have that be in the first paragraph, I mean, the messages have just been
Yeah.
out of, off the charts. Like the synchronicity, how things have, kind of lined up. Again, all with that same. So there's an energy around this whole COVID thing that I feel like is coming through where, you talked about us being in this sort of ascension cycle, which I absolutely believe. And what I'm seeing in my work with clients is that very old patterns that maybe they thought they had healed before, or maybe we're so pushed so far down in their subconscious that they weren't even really aware that they were still there. I mean, I think on some level they knew that they had happened, but it was not in their conscious awareness. I'm seeing all of that stuff come to the surface now to be healed, whether it's because we've slowed down, whether it's because of the amount of light that's pouring onto the planet, we're in this phase in the photon belt, whatever is going on now,
right,
individually and collectively, we are seeing the ugly underbelly of all of our stuff. And I feel like for me, this feeling like a nuisance, which I'd never used that language before, was one of those little kernels for me that I've done a lot of healing work. I joked about that before. But there was that little piece, that niggling thing that was there, that when I landed on it, it was like,
mm-hmm.
And since then, being able to surrender feels much easier.
Yeah.
It's like there was a letting go with that. I did a live yesterday or the day before, called, break open, break down, break through. It just kind of feels like that's what's happening on a global level and on a personal, individual level, if we're open to it, if we're not stuck in our addiction or, refusal to want to blame somebody else for something. Like if we're really, again, intentional and consciously wanting to walk our path and do our work,
yeah,
I think most people are noticing these things coming up to the surface now.
I think so too. I mean, I talk a little bit in my group about doing shadow work, and yeah, it's not easy. They don't. It's not easy, but it's so rewarding. And a lot of times, it's like you were saying before. It might be even something that you need to go back and revisit.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean you didn't do the work right last time. We go in cycles, or spirals, and so we heal at a level of consciousness that's available to us at the time.
Right.
And then when we're ready to go more deeply into it, to unpack it a little more, to maybe see our part in it, to be able to offer forgiveness or compassion in a way that we might not have. Maybe it was more a mental process last time, and now it's more of a heart. I think that's a big, even as I just said those words, I just got like, yeah, that's what's happening. Like maybe we're doing it on the level of the mind before. That's not to say there weren't emotions there, but oh yeah, let me be more compassionate or more forgiving or whatever. But now it's happening in that chamber of the Sacred Heart.
Right.
Because that's where the alchemy happens.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. So, Catherine, tell me about your program. You have a big program that you have been working really hard getting ready for it.
Yeah, so excited.
So people don't know this. So I had originally interviewed Catherine, and I think you were like getting ready to launch it. You were getting ready to launch the program, or at least you were maybe like talking about it.
Yeah, the wheels were were spinning.
Right. And we had this great interview, and ding-a-ling, me forgot to hit the record button. So I didn't get the recording. So I just was, I was listening to some of your recordings and I'm like, oh my gosh, I am so glad that I did not hit that button because I need to do this with Catherine now. So Catherine, tell us what your program is.
Yeah, so next Tuesday, we'll be starting Unleashed. And it's a 6-month mentoring program, group mentoring program for women. And sort of the subtitle is Heal Your Heart, Birth Your Brilliance, and Make an Impact. So again, does the impact have to be Mother Teresa style? No, the impact may be in your own family, in your own community, in your own self, right? And so it's really for women who are sort of in that space where they're feeling what I call that divine discontent, or some sense that there's something more, but I don't know what it is, or I have a feeling maybe I'm supposed to be doing this, but I don't know how, or I don't feel like I have the skills, or wait a minute, I've had so much trauma and my family was so messed up, I can't possibly have a higher purpose, right? Like, well, no, you do. My belief is that every soul that chose to incarnate some aspect of itself, there's the oversoul, and then there's the aspects that if your soul chose to incarnate as you here on earth in this lifetime, there was a reason for that, whether we call it purpose or direction, or a general theme for your life,
Right.
a theme that kind of runs through everything, like I was sort of describing before, work with women and, all of that stuff. It may just be that in your lifetime, particularly in your childhood, you didn't have the space or the opportunity or the support to even daydream, to explore those things, right? Maybe it wasn't safe. And so back to the program. So it's a 6-month mentoring program where we will dive into 6 sort of main pieces. So it's assessment, kind of like where you're at, diving into your vision a little bit more, getting some initial insights and intuition around your a vision or a purpose, looking at your limiting beliefs, where are the blocks in your own belief system where you may be sabotaging or holding yourself back. We do what I call a sacred inventory. And I describe this as sort of emotional archaeology, right? When I was an undergrad, I was a sociology and psychology major with the women's studies minor, and I thought I was going to be, an archaeologist for a while, or an anthropologist. I loved, that whole digging things up, and I love putting puzzle pieces together, and so now I do that emotionally and help walk women back through all those pieces that may have been broken or discarded or, thrown away as not being good enough or not being perfect enough or being too broken, and really kind of unearthing them and, doing the dusting off, lovingly dusting off the pieces and telling the story of them and healing them in that way. And then sort of reframing all of that and putting all of that back together and telling a new story and getting more clear about, oh, so what does that mean for my vision, for my purpose, for, the next stage of my soul's evolution.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and, I talk about that last piece as sort of, so the word authority, the word author is in authority. So it's about sort of becoming the author and the authority of the life that you want to create moving forward, honoring everything that has come before as, everything as the fertile ground, if you will, that has prepared you for this moment in time, where I believe empowering women is at one of its most critical turning points on the planet. 2,000 plus years of the patriarchy has driven us to the point of, well, I don't have to spell it out, for the planet and for, those of us who are on this planet. And, one of the things that has been consistent for me over the last 20 plus years has been a message about balancing the divine feminine with the divine masculine on the planet. And when I first started getting those messages, I had no idea what they meant. I was so in my masculine, growing up with 6 brothers and being very driven and type A and linear and goal, So my work, for many of those years was to do my own balancing, which I'm still doing. I am, but I think we're at such a critical moment in our evolution, in the evolution of humanity, where if we don't bring the more natural gifts of the feminine, intuition, inclusiveness, compassion,
right,
all of that, right? Collaboration. If we don't bring those things to the table, to the world table, it doesn't speak well for.
No, it's not speaking.
I don't want to be a doomsday, but it does not. I'll just say we cannot continue on the path that we're on.
Right.
So that's the program. 6 months. So we meet 18 times on Zoom over 6 months. So we meet 3 months, 3 weeks on, and then a week off, 3 weeks on. And each one of those 3 weeks is a different module of the modules that I just walked through. So there'll be content, there'll be videos, there'll be journaling prompts, there'll be, and then on the live Zoom calls, there'll be probably some teaching, but more time for question and answer and, sort of one-on-one coaching and guidance.
Mm-hmm.
I'm intentionally keeping it as a small group so that there will be plenty of time for everyone, to be seen and heard. And I've been doing one-on-one work for a long time when I've had groups of women together, and it's mostly in my women's circles, or my EFT classes are primarily women, the smaller groups, and I love the energy in the room. I love the support. I love how while we're doing the work, we're also healing the wound of women.
Yeah.
There's a lot of wounding and mistrust and betrayal and hurt, whether it's our own mother wound coming up, or the sister wound, or the comparison, or the competitiveness. We have an opportunity to do both our individual work and that more collective work at the same time.
This weekend I'm doing a sister wound workshop, and I'm pretty excited about doing that. So
yeah, are you facilitating it, or are you participating?
Yeah, I'm participating. I need some wound healing. so that's good. Okay, so I have 2 questions for you.
Yeah.
One is, so the new moon is coming this weekend. Do you do any moon rituals? Are you?
I go in and out of it. Sometimes I do. I don't make a point of it every new moon or every full moon.
Yeah. Okay. And I was just asking because I've recently gotten really interested in doing moon work. So, and I just thought it was interesting that the card that you picked this week was about the moon. That was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, it's more of a request. Can you pull a card for me?
Yeah. And the interesting thing was that the card with the woman with the moon at her feet, it said it's like the wild card in the deck. And if you pull another card with it, it amplifies. And I pulled another card that was so, I'm not remembering exactly what it is in this moment. And it referenced the crescent moon, which is what the woman with the moon at her feet was standing on. So it was just like, okay.
Yeah.
It just keeps on
coming.
Keeps on happening.
You have to be listening though, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
What did I get? I knew it. I knew it.
Our Lady with the Moon. Now, really, folks, we did not make that up. Could not have made that up.
I knew I was going to get that card.
Oh my gosh. So I will do my best to, because it's too much to read in the time that we have. I will
even take a picture and text it to me.
I will. I mean, it's a few pages long, but I want you to have the whole.
Yeah. That's great. Too much.
I'll take a picture of the card, and then I will also, take pictures of each page.
Oh, that's too funny. I know.
Really?
I know.
What are the chances of that?
Apparently, pretty good chances.
I will. Do you have like 30 seconds for me to read the prayer at the end, though? So there's always a healing process and an affirmation at the end of each of these. And this is just the affirmation at the end when you complete the process. And some of the languaging in here just, again, touched my heart. Holy Mother Mary, Our Lady with the moon at her feet, protect me with your heavenly grace. Where I would stumble, your love uplifts me. Where I would fail to see, your love opens the eye in my heart and gives me vision. Where I might fail, you ensure success. Together, I and all beings succeed in healing growth. I open and surrender into your tender blessing and merciful grace, that I will fulfill my divine destiny.
Crazy.
Could it have been any more? That line of where I would fail to see, your love opens the eye in my heart and gives me vision.
Yeah.
And then closing with divine destiny, that I might fulfill my divine destiny.
Yeah. That's
Amen. Yeah, amen. Yeah. Amen.
Catherine, thank you so much for coming on this time.
I will send you, if you're interested, Amy, the link to the group, if you want to just share that.
I would like to do like that very much.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and if anybody has questions or whatever, they can feel free to reach out to me. But I'll share that with you. I will send you along the specifics of the card. And this is lovely.
Thank you so much, Catherine. I really appreciate it. And thank you guys so much for watching. As always, it's always a pleasure. I love doing these interviews. I guess it's my purpose, part of my purpose. and my
I'm so happy that I could support you in fulfilling your divine destiny.